Hello and welcome to the Managed File Transfer Backbone of Your Operations webinar that we are presenting tonight together with WSO2 and Yenlo. In the next 35 to 40 minutes, we will take you through Managed File Transfer, and we'll discuss both the whys from a business perspective as well as the hows from the perspective of technology. And with me, I've got two other colleagues. I would like to invite Maya to quickly introduce himself.
Hi, this is Chinmay Tripathi, Senior Consultant at Yenlo, and I'm an integration consultant with WSO2 knowledge, and currently working with Yenlo. I have 9 years of experience with several technologies, back-end technologies and the front-end as well. And now I have integration technology knowledge also in WSO2, in ESB, and BAM, and API Manager. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, Sindran, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Sindhuran. I am a software engineer in WSO2, and I am a member of ESB team. So I'll be doing some development in enterprise service bus. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sindhuran. I'm Rob Labour. I'm a senior consultant and solution architect, and I also am doing a lot of training with all of the WSO2 products, and also write a lot about Internet of Things, WSO2 products for both novice readers, but also for people with a little bit more experience. So, having said that, let's go to the next one. A quick word about Yenlo. For those of you who don't know us, we are a premier partner of WSO2. We are a global organization. We have offices in the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, United Kingdom, and the United States. We offer a number of things, but everything we do has to do with integration and connecting business, because that's the way that we do business nowadays. It's not you are on your own. No, you have partners, you have suppliers, you have your customers, and everything needs to be connected. And what we deliver is WSO2 project and consultancy services, support services, the product support, development support, operational support, WSO2 training services, as I already said, and of course the enterprise and solution architecture. Okay, so tonight's webinar is on managed file transfer. The subtitle is, it's still one of the backbones of many organizations and many operations. And that is to some extent strange. On the other hand, it is actually a fact of life. And I think we have a solution to make your life easier, whether you are from the business perspective, from the technology perspective, or from the development perspective. So what we're going to start off with is a quick introduction to the file transfer in general. Then we are going to talk about file transfer in the enterprise service bus. That's actually going to be done by Sindhuran later on, who is going to explain a little bit how it works with a transport listener and a transport sender and what you need to do. Then we are going to talk a little bit about managed file transfer. What is it? Why is it called managed rather than just file transfer? The benefits of our managed file transfer solution, based of course on the excellent products from WSO2. We are going to do a demonstration with some technical details. So my colleague Chinmaya is actually going to put 10,000 files through a setup, and we'll actually see how quickly it goes. And of course, we wrap it up with your answering your questions. So if we have too many questions, we'll get back to you with the answers. We know, so to say, who you are, because you, of course, registered for this webinar. So we are able to send you all of the information that you might need if we don't have the time for all the questions. Okay, but that's just in the case that we don't have the time, and the less time I talk about this, the more time we have for the rest. So the longevity of file transfer, actually, as I said, it's quite surprising that file transfer is actually still here. For many organizations, it's still part of their daily operations. It's a way to transfer files between systems. So system A does something, creates a file, the file is being transferred to system B. Of course, you can go in another direction, creating proxies and things and other things between them. But this is something that we have known and that we've worked with for many years. It's also a way to interact with your business partners, perhaps as an intermediary solution to a direct connection, or just as a way of doing business. Managing laws, that's actually in the publishing, where one of our customers is actually their department is making laws, and those laws need to be moved from one department to the other one. So it's drafted, and then it will go to publishing, and in that case you use file transfers as well. And of course, no one likes them. Well, you don't like them if you have to pay money, but if you get money back, tax returns can be actually quite fun. In some cases, people actually upload their files to the tax authority in order to send in their tax information to get either money back or have to pay. And files can be big. They can be really big, up to several gigabytes, and also it can be really, really small, so only a few kilobytes, depending on the use case, of course. If you're sending an XML document with a lot of information, it rapidly becomes quite big. If you're sending just a smaller file, just a text message or whatever, it can be quite small. But you need to be prepared for something that is quite small and perhaps a lot of them, or quite big and not that many. Of course, another thing is that the files can be any format. So it can be PDF, it can be XML, it can be plain text, it can be so on. It depends on the use case of the organization that is working with them. And it can also be that the files can be encrypted or even need to be encrypted. So you must be able to receive an encrypted file or receive a file in a non-encrypted way and actually encrypt it before it goes on. So you have your XML, your PDF, your doc, your docx, depending, of course, as I said, on the use case of the organization. And the managed files should be agnostic as far as the document format goes. So it might also be that you want a receipt or a hash. So after uploading, you might need to send the uploader a receipt. As you see here in this overview, someone sends something up and you get a receipt back. And especially when you're talking about something like your tax information that you're sending on, you'll get a fine if you're too late, and you don't want that. And the receipt will actually show you, I've done my business on time, and that you didn't receive it, that's your problem. I've got a receipt saying here it is, etc., etc. And it might also be interesting to calculate a hash for audit purposes, so that you know that at a later stage, if there is a dispute about the contents, that you can say, well, you got your hash, this is this. When we do a recalculation of the hash, it's actually the same. So there has been no changes in the content of the file or whatsoever. And of course, there is malicious content. Is there any unwanted payload? When things are text files, the opportunity for malicious content is not as big. As soon as you go to any digital, more PDF-like or file that isn't human readable, there is always the chance that one way or the other, intentionally or unintentionally, there is actually unwanted payload, and that needs to be quarantined. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as well. And of course, the setup can be challenging. What are you going to do? Are you going to have an active passive or active active setup? It should be scalable in order to scale up to the number of documents that it receives. And what's very, very important, make sure that only one ESB picks up the file, not two or more. And of course, you want the stuff to be delivered guaranteed. So it needs to be a dead letter channel, as you know from the enterprise integration patterns that are also supported by WSO2 ESB. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Senduran, who is going to talk a little bit about how it actually works when you want to do file transfer within the enterprise service bus. I take it away, Senduran.
Okay, so before we move into the VFS transport, I would like you guys to go through all the other transport available in ESB. So ESB supports a variety of transport out of the box, which makes the ESB capable of sending and receiving messages over a number of transports and application level protocols. Following are some of the available transport. As you can see here, we have HTTP or HTTPS NIO transport. HTTP NIO transport is based on Apache HTTP Core NIO library, and it uses a configurable pool of non-blocking worker threads to grab incoming HTTP messages off the wire. And also we have HTTP pass-through transport. HTTP pass-through transport also based on Apache HTTP Core NIO library, but this is specially designed for streaming messages. HTTP pass-through transport is similar to NIO transport, that is, it will be also using the non-blocking worker threads, but it does not care about the content. That means it won't try to build the message unless it's needed. So in ESB, you guys might know we have these mediators. So we can categorize the mediators as content-aware mediators and content-non-aware mediators. So if unless the pass-through transport finds a content-aware mediator, it won't try to build the message. So it will simply stream all the messages what it receives. So this pass-through transport is very useful when we have this header-based routing. So we don't have to see what's in the message. We simply check the header, and based on the header, we route the message to the desired target. And also, pass-through transport is very useful when there is a load balancing scenario. So based on the load, based on our configuration, it will just route the messages to the endpoint. And also we have HTTP servlet transport. Servlet transport comes from our Carbon platform. Servlet transports, the implementation is coming from Tomcat's HTTP connector, and this is this transport is the default transport in all other WSO2 products except ESB. ESB is using HTTP pass-through transport as the default transport. And the another most commonly used transport is JMS, which is the Java Message Service transport, which allows to receive messages from queues and topic, which has the implementation of the JMS specification, like WSO2 Message Broker, ActiveMQ from Apache, and the VFS transport that we are going to talk today. VFS stands for the Virtual File System, which is an abstraction layer on top of more concrete file system. The purpose of VFS is allow client application to access different types of concrete file systems in a uniform way. For example, VFS can access to both local and remote files using FTP or SFTP. And another commonly used transport is FIX, which is Financial Information Exchange Transport. This is for international real-time exchange of information related to security, transaction, and markets. This transport implementation is based on the QuickFixJ open source FIX engine. Other transport, other than the above mentioned transport, ESB also supports HL7, mail to TCP, and more. For the complete list, please have a look at our transport documentation. And let's see VFS transport. VFS supports the following protocols like local file system, FTP, and all. The local file system, which is useful when we need to read or process a file which is reside in the server. That's where the ESB server itself is running. That stands for the local file system. For example, we may need to process a log file which is from the server, or we may need to add the key store file or something, or we need to do something on that file. We can use this local file system transport protocol, but that won't be the usual case, right? Most of the time, the ESB or the server will be running in a remote server, so we may need to talk to remote servers which has the file. In that scenario, we can use FTP, file transfer protocol, which is very useful in that cases. Say the file is just a plain text, or it's not some secure file, then we can just use the FTP. But if it is the content is sensitive and we need to secure, we can use the FTPS transport. So in the FTPS transport, we will be having FTPS is for FTP transport over the SSL. So it will have the certificate from both server and client side. So by exchanging the certificates, the file content can be secured through the wire. Similarly, we can use SFTP, which is SSH FTP protocol, and also ESB supports SMB protocol. And the VFS transport in ESB has three component file handling components. One is the VFS transport, which has this sender listener part, and file inbound protocol and file connector. File inbound protocol is introduced in ESB 490. So if you are using 481 or 480, the older version, you will only can use the VFS transport. This file inbound thing is introduced in 490. Also, we have a file connector. File connector will support 481 and 490, but we recommend to use it with 490. So as I mentioned, VFS transport has two main parts, like VFS listener and VFS sender. So VFS listener is the one who is capable of listening to a source location that we configure to a source directory. The source directory can be a local file or a remote file, as we discussed. And it will be listening to that particular source location, and it say in that location, if there is a change in the file or we add a new file, it will be notified. So we can filter those things, like, so we can give a file name pattern giving. So if this kind of, if the file name pattern is a configured one, a pattern, it should trigger this listening, it should trigger event like that. And also we can filter with the file extension. So we can specify we need to get all the text files, that is star.txt should be taken from the file. So if we put the XML file into that with XML extension, that file won't be picked up. And the other part is VFS transport sender. So VFS transport sender is the one who is responsible for storing a file in a target location. Again, that target location can be local or remote. So he can, I mean, the sender can write a new file, or by configuring it, it can append it to the same file. The content can be appended. By default, the VFS transport is not enabled in ESB. To enable the VFS transport, we may have to uncomment the lines I'm showing here in the exist2 XML. Exist2 XML can be found in ESB's home repository conf exist2 directory. So in exist2 directory, if we uncomment the VF transport's receiver name as VFS and whatever the implementation, and the sender for the to enable the VFS sender. So in the inbound, the file inbound, which is pretty much similar to VFS transport, and it's an improved alternative to VFS transport. Improved in the sense it has the improved functionality of VFS transport, and it also have the error handling improvement. And the file inbound supports multi-tenancy, and file inbound protocol supports coordination in the clustered environment. So when this coordination is enabled in cluster environment, file inbound task will run on only one ESB instance at a time. So which makes sure that the only one file will be picked up. So this one file will not be picked up by two ESB instances. And also it supports the FTP, SFTP, SMB protocols as well. And the other one is file connector. File connectors pretty much have the same operations like creating a file, reading, appending, move or delete, archiving, renaming the file, but it's implemented using NIO technology, non-blocking IO technology. So it has its speed file copy, kind of good operation to use it. And today I talked of showing two main use cases of VFS. The mostly common use cases are two. One is HTTP to VFS. That is, the client may send a HTTP or a incoming message, and using this VFS proxy, we can either transform the whatever the payload coming in, or we can directly write that content to a remote or local file as a file using VFS transport. Here I'm using FTP, so I'll be writing into a remote file. Similarly, we have another use case like VFS to HTTP. That means we are reading a file from source location and writing or we call service. It can be either HTTP, or we can use JMS to put that content into a message broker kind of thing. So those are the things I thought of covering in a VFS. Rob?
Okay, I will take over again if we can do the switch to my screen. Okay. And okay, I'm going to skip the slides that my colleague has just done. So the managed file transfer is based on WSO2, which is of course no surprise. It's a robust solution based on the ESB, many out-of-the-box features to address the mentioned challenges, and we still have some ideas for future expansions. And while I'm saying this, don't forget to put in your questions via chat if you have them. You don't have to wait until the end of the presentation in order to send them. Okay, and of course added high availability by adding 2 or more ESB nodes, either just standalone or in a clustered way, so with worker nodes and a manager node. Both will actually work, and my colleague Chinmaya will actually show how blazingly fast it already is at this moment. Of course, we are still busy with all of the benchmarks, but for now, it looks very high performance. Okay, so one of the things that we think is important is, of course, the high availability and the guaranteed delivery. So the guaranteed delivery is something that in many cases it's a necessity, because you don't send files just for fun. You send them because you want to do business. You send them because you want to do your tax returns. You send them because you want to put one law from draft into the next phase. So service level agreements, guaranteed delivery if needed, delivery only once, of course, receipt with or without a hash, and the possibility to work with encrypted files are all things that we believe are very important in a solution like this. Of course, high availability setup, either in an active passive setup or an active active solution, with or without one or more groups. It's all possible, of course, depending on the amount of data that you need to send over. Content and metadata control. What we believe is that you should have the possibility to route based on simple rules. For instance, a regular expression, a timestamp, inclusion and exclusion criteria. So inclusion would be, I would like to have download or transfer all of the files of file type PDF. Or you say, no, I would like to exclude all of the file types of, for instance, audio files or video files or whatever. So you can do it on size, you can do it on type, you can do it on extension. Encryption or the absence of encryption, of course, and virus scanning, as I already said. So when you develop a product like this, first of all, you get it working. So what we are showing here are some of the mock-ups that we're currently working on. The product is already up and running, but we want to make it a little bit nicer for people to actually use. So in this case, you see a number of gateways: Heisenberg, Poli, and Schrödinger. And at this moment, Heisenberg and Poli are actually up and running, and Schrödinger is not. And you see the files currently in transport. And actually, when you see the demo from Chimaya, you actually almost not see the files because it goes so very fast. And then you have the possibility to do metadata rating or content-based routing. An example of metadata-based routing, if the substring of a field includes the letters BSN, POV2, citizens BSN, ignore files over a certain size and reject files with the following suffixes. As I said, this is work in progress and we're still working on it. These are actually the variables that we're using currently, only in a nice way, in a nice screen. So the poll interval, the maximum file size, what you're going to do after you process it, cluster awareness, the content type, file patterns, and what's going to happen after failure, and where it's going to go if it's failed, and where it's going to go if it's actually moved. Okay, for the future developments, what we think about is encryption, decryption. Either an encryption, receiving an encrypted file and decrypting it, or receiving an unencrypted file, encrypting it, receiving an encrypted file and sending it on encrypted. The hash creation for audit purposes, malicious payload scanning, receiver sender uploader, and of course potential validation of the payload. So we actually peek inside to see if what we expect in the file is already there. And you can say we'll just do a high-level scan, or we can actually do already some of the processing of the file as a step after the process. So it can be either an internal call or an external call, depending on what the solution would demand. Okay, so what are the benefits? Of course, high availability, multi-tenant, monitoring and tracing, guaranteed delivery, and it's a service. So you don't have headaches for the end user. You basically just use it. Files are getting stored and files are getting processed as far as you go. That's the only thing you need to. You don't need to worry about anything. Everything will go as planned. So, having said that, I believe that showing is better than talking. So, I would like to ask my colleague Chinmaya to take over the screen and give us a demonstration of the solution and explain a little bit about what we've done in order to make this possible. Chinmaya?
Yes. Hi, this is Chinmay. So thank you for attending. So mainly what we are showing is there are two ESBs. We are accessing to a folder where more than 8,000 or 9,000 files are there. So I can show you the folder is a test folder. And there are two ESBs, proxies, which are pointing to the same folder. So I'll just move to the test folder. And there are all the parameters that Rob explained you will be given, like the VFS properties. Like the main property that should be enabled every time when you are using a VFS is the streaming, and the streaming, it should be true. And every time the VFS works in a pool. So whenever you copy a file to a folder structure, the poll interval will start actually. So basically from the poll interval, you can define your own time parameter, whether in the 15 or some 20, you have to define a minute and then it will start processing. And then the action after the process, you want to move the file or you want to delete the file, you can choose. And then your file URI pattern, the file from where you want to pick it up. Now in the ESB, there are two places you can put your file URI. One place in the transport VFS property, or in the endpoint also, you can use it. And after moving the file, so where you want to place the file actually, that you can define in this parameter. Move after the process, the folder structure you can define, and the cluster awareness, whether you want to enable the cluster or if you have multiple nodes you want to do. Then we have two type of doing that. One is you can do it with the Hazelcast, or VFS has its own casting cluster technology services that you can use it. So different nodes you can give more than 2 members, and VFS will handle that. Now, after suppose any failure happens while the transfer, then you can go with the you can give your folder where you want to place your failed files. So those many parameters you can keep it. And the maximum file size, you can define your maximum file size while transferring. The file name pattern, what kind of file name pattern you can use it. Now another feature that is interesting, which is locking feature. Suppose you want to transfer a file and you don't want anybody from other sources, you want to restrict to use that file, so you can lock that file as well. And the content type, you can define your content type, and all these content type, the builders or formatters are defined in the access2.xml, which is in the ESB conflict. And action after failure, you can define as well. You want to delete the file or you want to move the file, that you can define. Now I'll demonstrate how it can be done. So as I have changed in the ESP1, I have two ESPs, one in the port of 1, and Here I will show you. Yes. So here we are reading the file from a test directory, and its file type is XML. So I'll put it as test and I'll save it. And the file transfer will start over here. And we have defined another node where you can see your file. And here we have defined as the PDF type and the application PDF. And here also you can define your own type from where you can read your file. So I'll save it so both the nodes can read those files from the same directory. So as you can see, the files are processing and the files are getting locked and it is transferring as well. So, and we have defined in the ESB and here we have defined our ESB if the files are being moved, and it will go to an out directory with wherever the instance is there. I have given its name ESB1. For the same instance, second instance, I have given the name as ESB2. So here I have given the instances out folder ESB2. So as you can see, all the XML files are moved to the ESB1 folder, and all the PDF files are moved to the folder. And another thing, if you have checked it, then the XML files which are size greater than the given limit will not be transferred over here. And another point, to check the failure mechanism, this is the happy test what we are testing, but if some of the corrupt file, if it is coming to a particular folder, then how the files will behave, the file transfer will behave in the VFS transfer. So what we can do is we will copy these files over here, and so all the files are being moved. So but you can test it in the file directory. So all the corrupt files, if it is failing, then it will go to the, so you can cross check whether it is failed or not. So you can see the errors, and if it is really delivered failed or something happened with the files, there are corrupt files, you can check it in your file directory, which has been given by your ESB proxy. And this is the main feature of VFS, where if you want a given pattern, file pattern or ESB in the ESB proxy, that you can define of your own file name pattern, and Currently in the VFS, we are not allowing the subfolder because you can define of your own subfolder in the parent folder, and you can give your own out directory as well. So, Rob, can you take it from my side?
Yes, I will take it over. Thank you for the demo. Was that about below 2 minutes for the
Yes.
whole?
So a whole 10,000 files. Sorry to interrupt, Rob. So the file transfer for 10,000 files and the curve files, it's below 2 minutes. The whole file transfer. So that is the biggest advantage of VFS, that within a few seconds, the files will be transferred within your next folders. Now it has been proved in our one of our customer that in the network also 1 GB of file are being transferred very fast within a few minutes actually, within the PDF file and XML file. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, thank you. And I'll take the screen. There's my screen again. Okay, so sorry for that. I was too hasty because I said we are going to do questions and answers. And I'm happy to see that we actually have a number of questions. So let me go for the first question. And the first question is, could the solution handle EBCDIC to UTF-8 conversion? I think Chinmaya might be the person that actually could answer that. Chinmaya, can you shed light on this EBCDIC to UTF-8?
Can you tell me again, Rob? What is the question?
The question is, can the solution handle EBCDIC to UTF-8 conversion? So from one character set to the other.
Yes. In the VFS, we are dealing with the total file properties. So if we get a file system, then we can definitely handle that inside a Java code.
Okay. Then the next question, that might be something for Senduran. Is there support for IBM MQ integration?
Yes, we have IBM. It will support. We can use JMS there, and also we have this. We saw the transport list. Also, it contains this MQTT transport as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's not only for this product, but that's for the whole ESB, because it's just something that you can add as a transport.
Yeah.
Okay. The third question that I have is somewhat more cryptic. Sometimes WSO2 picks file while some other application is in write mode. So how can we avoid it? I think, Chinmaya, can you answer that? Do you understand the question?
No, can you repeat it again, Rob?
Sometimes WSO2 picks file while some other application is in write mode. So how can we avoid it? So it looks like that some other application still has a hold or a lock on the file, while WSO2 wants to grab the file.
The main feature you can we have a locking mechanism that you can avoid. You can make it disable and you can use it, or the file type you can use the same file name pattern you can use for that.
Yeah. Shall I try to answer that?
Yes, sure.
We have faced such issues like what Chinmaya mentioned is take the file and write into other place. This is the same thing. What happens is when one file is trying to write to a file, one system is trying to write to a file, and meanwhile ESB goes and reads. For that one, I think the best option would be whoever writing the file should lock and write. So in that case, no one. It will be easier. Otherwise, what will happen is the partially written content will be taken by ESB because the VFS transport will only check the file name .lock. So if I say it's going to process a file called a.txt, it will check for a file called a.txt.log. So I think the better if the writing system also lock the file and write it to it and then release the log. Then so you can see there will be a file type change, right? So I mean the file name type, the pattern will change like so. So when it's creating a .log, ESB won't pick up that log file because we have configured only to take a .txt file. So it will be a txt.log. So ESB won't pick it up. So once the writing is completed, whoever the writing can remove the log. So in a way, I think we can overcome that issue.
Okay. Another question has to do with file size. Is there any way to restrict movement of a file of 0 size? Chimaya?
Yes. File of 0 size to restrict. Yes, we can give a solution to that actually, but there is no property to that and enabled in VFS right now. But we can give the solution to that.
So that would be some bespoke development in order to.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we have 3 small questions. Is there actually a maximum file size? Can you do 40 gigabytes of data transfer in one file?
Actually, yes, we can. Yeah, we can, but it's dependent on what we are processing as well. Say if we are trying to do some very heavy processing on that, we might end up in out of memory because we may need to get to all the 40 gigabytes into our memory. But say if we are going to just transfer, or say it's a CSV file and we are going to dump that CSV to a DB, we don't have to read the CSV content. We can just take the CSV content and put it into a database. So in those kind of scenario, we can use the. So you have seen Chinmaya was showing a file type like application XML. Likewise, we can enable in the X2 XML called binary relay transport or binary transport, so which will not going to read the content, or it will not try to build the message. So it will just write it to the database, so whatever the process. So in that scenarios, even if we have a 40 gigabytes of file, it won't go out of memory.
Okay. We have 2 more questions, and then we I think we are about at the end of the webinar. So the one is, will locking make the process slow or slower? Chinmaya?
No, the locking mechanism, it won't make the process slower. It's just a feature to make the file secure only. So and to not to give the access to other proxies or other person to access the files. So it won't make the process slow. It's currently proven to a customer, one of our customers, they're processing the locking file system of gigabyte, actually, more than 1 gigabyte.
Then I have another question coming in. How does it enable multi-tenancy and how does it support multi-tenancy? So let's say that you have 5 organizations, all with 3 file types that they would like to move from one directory to the other. Is that possible, Chinmaya?
Yes, it's possible. It's possible because you can define of your own target directory, and from different sources you can define on a home directory, and different department can give their own department name in that subdirectory. By default, a subdirectory cannot be transferred directly in the VFS. So within the subdirectory, you can give your path, and then any department can use that.
And are there any restrictions on the file names?
There is no restriction in the file name pattern.
as long as the operating system accepts it as a
Accepted, it's fine. Yes, yes.
fine. Okay. Then I have one more question that is on how will the rules be configured to route the files to different folder as you show in the GUI components. Before Chimaya is going to answer that, let me just say that this is a mock-up and we're still building that sort of capability in order to build it. Chimaya, can you say a little bit about what would be the way that we can actually that we can actually work with content-based routing or with file names and stuff like that?
So you mean to say the managed way of transferring the files, right? So basically, three things is most important in the VFS. One is do not send the files to the home directory. Give a particular name, pattern. You define your own pattern while giving the folder structure. Second, do not use the regular expression like star.star to search for all folders. Give a particular file pattern and use the locking mechanism because it's secure. And even if the fault directory also, even fault directory you can you should define your own faulty folder structures. So that is the main way of managing the files.
Okay. There's still coming there's still questions coming in. What we can do is that we can follow up with the questions and send to all of the attendees and the people who registered an overview of the questions. I think that would be the best time-wise.
Yes.
So let's do that. We store all the questions, and you can receive an email with the questions that we weren't able to address later on this week or early next week.
Yes.
And yeah, so if you want to listen back to the presentation or the presentation or the webinar itself, you know where to find it. You can download it from our website. You can find it at WSO2 in a couple of days' time. It will take some time to put them online. And I would like to thank you for your patience, for your interest, and for all your questions. And have a great evening, have a great day, or have a great night, depending on wherever you are in the world. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.